Why do I clap like I'm like I've never clapped before in my life, and I'm so scared of what the reaction is going to be.
You're delicate.
Wait, who was this? What was that video at the Oscars? Who clapped? Nicole Kidman.
Oh, yeah. Because of that giant diamond ring, I think. She was like, I can't clap and like destroy this ring.
Doing the most, or else we'll go crazy. Maybe Michelle and Barack can come save me. Spinning around. I need some therapy that's free. Look to my phone as soon as I wake up, losing control. But neither will save us getting it wrong. But at least we try. We try. I really, really like it when you say my name, Black Frasier. I really, really like it when you say those things. Tell me something good. I really, really like it when you say my name, Black Frasier. I really, really like it when you say those things. Tell me something good.
Hi, you guys!
Ooh, your voice cracked a little bit then.
It's the way that Sia's voice cracks when she sings.
Okay.
It was a stylistic choice, biatch.
Okay, fair enough then. I apologize.
Anyway, welcome to another episode of Black Frasier. As always, I'm your host, Phoebe Lynn Robinson, and I am joined in the studio, y'all, by my producer, co-producer, my editor, the love of my stinking life, British Bloody Bake Off.
Hello, guys. How you doing?
Sorry, I have a cough drop in my
Yeah.
mouth. Well,
Just don't choke on it.
I've been talking a lot today, babes.
Yeah.
And I just want to go on the record and state,
On the record, Your Honor.
as much as I love you, honey,
Ooh. Where's this going?
I think you need to start wearing underwear under your sweatpants, because every morning I just see the freaking outline of your dick tip as I'm having a bowl of granola.
Do you think this is a good time to bring this up?
I think it's a perfect time.
Oh.
I think the listeners will agree. Less sausage in the morning.
Your doctor's prescribed less sausage, less red meat in the morning. Okay. I did catch myself actually I went downstairs earlier on.
Wait, you went out of the apartment just dangling everywhere?
Yeah. I was in the elevator and I looked in the mirror and I could see, and I was like, oh, I best drop this package off quickly. No pun unintended there.
I mean, remember we went to Cleveland to stay at my parents' house?
Yeah.
And you
I
brought...
wore underwear.
No, but that one morning... Okay, so this is partially my fault because my dumb ass got you this like cute pair of like Calvin Klein PJs. And I was like, oh, it's like a nice royal blue. He loves blue pajamas. I'll be a cute girlfriend. But it's a thin material.
It is a breezy material, yes.
And this hoe was going to go downstairs to where my mom, Octavia, was in the kitchen and make a cup of bloody tea with his dick flopping around in his pajama pants.
I can't help it if your mother wants to grab a look.
Octavia's not about that life. She's been happily married for 40 years.
Yep.
She's not looking for no British dong.
Can we move off this subject? I feel very attacked.
I'm sorry. I'm just letting you know I love your penis. But
you don't want to see it in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Noted, and I'll try to do better.
Anyway, I'm very excited because today we have a great episode. But before we get to that, I have 2 orders of business.
What's on the agenda?
First order of business. We have mother freaking merch, you guys.
Mother freaking merch.
So go to phoeberobinson.com/merch. Get yourself a t-shirt or a sweatshirt or both, sizing small to XXL.
Brilliant.
So go get that. phoeberobinson.com/merch.
Second order of business.
Second order of business. hold on to your pants, you guys, because as I announced last week, we have a sponsor.
Dun, dun, dun.
And it's not from Squirrelbox,
No.
not from stamps.com.
We're not trying to make you build a website.
So fuck off, Wix.
Damn. Shots fired.
It's not from Lamborghini.
Not that they sponsor videos, but it's not from them.
It's not from Oprah's Book Club.
Or you two.
Or you two, even though I've reached out to Bono and I was like,
Yo,
hey,
bonbons.
yeah, bonbon. Hook it up. And then he never wrote back. I did not email him about
No.
giving me money. But this is very exciting, you guys, because I think part of the point of this podcast was to make sure I'm using my platform to highlight a Black-owned business each episode. And this Black-owned business was like, hey, we love so much what you're doing. Can you shout us out for 3 weeks in a row? And I'm like, wow. So I am, I sound like a 12-year-old.
Yeah. Wow.
Wow. So I am, of course, talking about one of my favorite skincare companies, Bolden. Okay. So you could go on to Instagram. I was going to say Instagram.com. I turned into my mom.
The Instagram.com.
She still has an AOL account.
Oh, God.
And Octavia checks the AOL news.
Oh, and the weather. I love the AOL weather.
It's so cute when mom is like talking about like the Kelly Clarkson news she saw on AOL. And I'm like,
I've noticed all the like news articles your dad sends us is at .aol.com.
it's either AOL.com or MSN.com.
Yeah.
I'm like, not the Atlantic?
No. The Times? No. Oh.
Shout out to MSN. Okay, but I love this skincare brand Bolden. I feel like I started using them like a year and a half ago. As you know, babe, I have hyperpigmentation. It's been a struggle. It's been a journey. And I use their facial wash every day. And it's really helped with my skin. And it's so amazing. And it's really just good to have products that are made for people who have melanin in their skin, because it really, I feel like I'm actually protecting my skin. But they do all kinds of things. They have like overnight spot treatments, moisturizers. They have sunscreens, cleansers, bars, all the things. So you guys need to go to boldenusa.com and you can go to their handle, which is Bolden USA. And that is B as in beware of danger.
O as in
optometry. That's a nice career path. L as in London, because she took me there for my birthday.
Okay.
And that was really cute. 2017. E as in epicenter. N as in
no other D. Just checking.
Oh, did I skip it? Okay, let's start over. Wait. Okay, B as in beware. O as in optometry. L as in London. D as in dictionary. E as in epicenter. N as in Nickelback.
Oh. Carry on.
U as in
USA.
Okay, you make fun of this spelling process, and now you want to get involved?
I was just trying to hurry it along so we can get to today's episode.
Excuse me. S as in sensuality. And A as in
Bloody hell. Have you checked out Bolden yet?
boldenusa.com, you guys. Truly, this will make for a great Christmas present, birthday present, all the things.
All the presents.
They even have like a nice little face mask if you want to do it. It's like a 5-minute one. So it's a quick mask. Because a lot of these masks are out here like, you want to give us...
We need 60 minutes of your life.
Yeah. And it's like, what?
Yeah.
I have things to do. I have to go from my bedroom to my living room, back to my bedroom. So give me these 5 minutes and that's it. Bolden, USA. Okay. Third order of business. Today's episode.
It's a bloody good one.
This is really a fun topic. The theme today is siblings. And we got a lot of questions.
We did.
People were like, let me tell you about this trick over here. And when I came up with this theme, I was like, oh, there's only 2 people that I could talk to about this. So I hit up my girls, Tegan and Sara, because they are, they're charming and funny and hilarious, but they're also twins. They work together. They're in a band. They write together. Like they are so in each other's lives. I just think it'd be really interesting to talk about what it means to have a sibling with someone you're that close to.
Especially in the working life as well. That's such a hard dynamic to balance.
And you and I both have siblings. And I get along with my brother, but I feel like you always say like, Phil and I always sort of revert back.
You're serious and like checking up on each other's lives for the first 5 minutes of any kind of interaction. And then it reverts straight back to you being teenagers and just like pushing each other's buttons.
That's very true.
But then you go back again to like actually a serious subject and then just like drift off the conversation. Yeah.
I noticed in the background this animation of me. Very cute.
Yeah. I changed my desktop background.
Anyway, in all seriousness, thinking about the holidays, it makes me think about family. So I think when people are having maybe sort of questions or concerns about like how they can improve their relationship with their siblings or at least come to an agreement even if they're not going to get close the way they used to be. I just thought this was like a really great episode. And this is one where it's like I could do a siblings episode literally every year because the dynamics are just so different every single time.
Yeah.
I think like having these conversations about family are so key because family truly impacts every single relationship that we have in our lives going forward.
For sure.
So without further ado, here is my blind interview.
Oh, God.
With 2 of my favorite mates, Tegan and Sara. Hi, Tegan and Sara.
I wish I could. When this comes out, I'm gonna make that my alarm sound. Like when it's just gonna be like, just every morning I want to hear that.
Hi. Thank you for joining me on Black Frasier. I'm so excited. It's been so fun to record these podcasts, but I feel like each episode we get to go deep, which I think is what people want. And, we had enough of like the sort of like just kind of tell me about your record or tell me like if I have to talk about Toot Up Queens one more time and like what was it like to like host it? It's like that's a question that no one cares about at all. Like it was fine. Like we got paid, we showed up, and we had carrots as a snack. Like no big deal.
Ooh,
so what I want to do with this
lovely.
podcast is just kind of like dig deep into each theme with each guest that I have on. And so today, you guys are the first time we're doing like 3 locations for Black Frasier during COVID. This is quite a technological feat. And people were very excited when I posted that I was going to interview you guys. And so I want to talk to you about siblings. I feel like when I announced this podcast, people had questions about dating and questions about siblings. So I was like, okay, we got to get in here and like talk about this ASAP. So I'm so excited. And I think it's going to be a really, really cool conversation. And hopefully everyone listening will love it. I have an older brother. He turns 40 this year. I cannot believe that. I truly can't believe that. And we were sort of like, we were like double trouble growing up as kids. And then, he's 4 years older. And so he got to high school and he has his friend groups and he's dating. And then he went off to DC to go to college. And so we sort of drifted apart. And then I think when he started having kids again. Not again, but he started having kids for the first time.
Get a first round.
That second round was really what brought us together.
Yes, I have a niece and nephew, and I think him having kids really sort of made us go like, oh yeah, like we really got to make sure that our bond is like super tight again. And so we've gotten so much closer than we have been maybe in like the past 10 years, which has been amazing. And really exciting. So I'm curious to sort of kind of talk to you guys about your journey and your relationship. I mean, you two also work together, and just sort of like seeing each other as adults. Because I know sometimes when my brother and I like hang out, we immediately revert back to, I am 12-year-old Phoebe, he's 16-year-old PJ, and he's giving me a hard time, and I'm yelling and screaming. And my boyfriend's like, why are you guys acting like kids? Like, what is wrong with you? So I'm wondering, do you guys have that sort of relationship where you kind of fall back into these old patterns? And how do you think your relationship to each other is now?
I had a couple years ago, I went and saw this therapist with my girlfriend to talk, we wanted to add to our toolbox some like boundaries and skills with dealing with family, because her family lives in Brazil and my family is always there. And so it was basically like, how do we deal with
Not
this?
in Brazil.
Not in Brazil. Sorry. I mean, always there in our lives. Like, you know, obviously with Sarah and I working together, but then when we're home. So like, you know, a lot of family involvement in our lives. And the therapist was bad, like very bad. And there's stories for another day over margaritas. But one of the good things that she taught us was this idea that like, you know, a lot of the sibling relationship, like the conflict that Sarah and I were having, was this return to homeostasis. As much as we were developing as human beings, and as much as we had expanded and stretched ourselves and added to our toolbox and all that crap in our relationships, in our working relationships with our friends, how we have so little conflict outside of, you know, the sibling relationship, but why do we have conflict within the relationship? And she was like, it's just the draw back to homeostasis, that first core relationship with your family. It's so strong and you have to fight it all the time. And I think Sarah and I are really, maybe Sarah will disagree, but I think we get along pretty well as long as we're not talking about work. But like the second we start to talk about work, you know, it's this thing that we've had to share our entire adult life. You know, we have our own partners. We have a lot of our own friends. We've often lived in the same or different cities. We really have like our own identity. But then when it comes to Tegan and Sara, which eats up a ton of real estate in our life, that's like where we really have to share all the time. And I think that's why we revert back to some of those like kid behaviors where it's like almost like competitive and we don't really listen to each other. Like when Sarah's telling me a story about her life or her friends, I would never like interrupt her or question it, you know, but when she starts to talk about my fucking band, I'm like, hold up. Hold on a second.
It's interesting because I have this instinct to also define when we talk about work, what we're talking about, because Tegan and I, we rarely argue over creative endeavors. Like we don't, like we're working on a book together right now that requires—
Wait, a second one?
A second book. Yeah. But it's a book, it's a graphic novel and it's fiction. And we sort of purposefully are writing it totally different than our memoir, where the memoir was like our stories. And so we didn't really need each other as collaborators until much later into the process of actually like threading the book together. But the graphic novel, because it's fiction and it's told from one point of view, it's required that we collaborate pretty much like from day one. And, you know, so, like, and we don't fight, like we don't argue about it. There's this like really nice synergy and flow to like the way we're working. But so when Tegan says like we argue, I think we argue about the business a lot. We have really different, like the different ways that we cope and manage and decision make and interact.
Like our business is successful because of me, but it's cool because of Sarah.
Wow.
Uh-oh. Is there going to be a throwdown on the podcast today?
What brings up, Phoebe, for you? What with PJ, like what are your conflict tension points still as adults?
Gosh, I mean, he just he's the older sibling, so he just knows how to like needle or say that one little comment that like sort of sets me off. And the other thing is, so my parents are very supportive of my career, but I told them like never to listen to Two Dope Queens. Like I was like, It's so raunchy. It's so inappropriate. Like, I just think it would just be weird for everyone. They are totally fine with that. And sometimes it'll be like clips of me like online, like doing my stand up where I'm also like making sex jokes about my boyfriend. And he will just like want to cue it up over Thanksgiving dinner, like just so I can be so uncomfortable. So it's just things of like where he likes to like poke and prod. But I think the other thing with us is, you know, I think when we were younger, definitely like during high school, when I was a freshman and he was a senior, I was for sure in his shadow, right? Like he was like the big man on campus. He was super cool. Like every girl liked him. He got, I don't know, he was like a 4.0 student. Like he was just like, if you went down like textbook, like this is like the ideal high schooler that I want, it was him. And I was a slacker and I was like awkward and I like never had any dates. I like didn't know what I wanted to do. Like he's a local politician in Cleveland. He also works at a nonprofit and he's always had that like service energy about him, even when he was like a little kid. So he knew what he wanted to do forever and I didn't. So we were just so opposite and I felt like everyone liked him. And I was just sort of like this disappointment because I didn't live up to what he was. And, you know, obviously as an adult, I can go, well, I felt a lot of that and people maybe necessarily didn't. But it's hard, especially when you're a teenager. You just, you feel so like, ugh, my body's weird. Like, I suck. I'm not cool. I have acne. Like, I don't know.
That's
like
literally, I'm about to turn 40 and that's literally me now. I'm awkward. My body sucks. I have acne.
Oh, Teagues. And so, yeah, I just kind of felt like this loser in comparison to him. And so I think as adults now, I have my own business. Like I'm really sort of confident. I have like an amazing partner. And like, I really feel like I'm in a good place self-confidence wise. So I think my relation to him has gotten better because I worked on myself. But it took me a long time to realize, girl, you're making this so much more difficult than it needs to be because you don't like yourself. Which is like, that's some real talk. And that's a scary thing to say to yourself. But it really helped me sort of get over my own shit, you know?
Yeah. Well, also your perception of yourself also influences how you perceive everyone else. And I think, you know, for Sarah and I, a huge turning point in our relationship as siblings, but also as business partners came when I really started to listen to Sarah about how she perceives herself, how she sees herself. Because I think my relationship to Sarah was often fraught because I have a very different like perspective on who I am and how I sit in the world, but also how Sarah sits in the world. I see us a specific way. I've always really, I think I came into this world with like an enormous amount of confidence and purpose and, you know, aggressiveness about like, this is how things are going to be and we're awesome and we deserve this. And Sarah had such a different outlook and way of and it would cause a lot of conflict because I was always pushing my, my vision of who we were and what she was. And I think, you know, I still fall into that trap, but I think repairing my relationship with myself, but also allowing Sarah to dictate the terms of how she sees herself, like especially as twins, like you're just treated, even now we're like 40-year-old women and we're sometimes treated like we're still one person or we're kids. Like we also live in this stunted space of like we've never really left the nest in a way because we're still together, and this family element to our business has kind of kept us youthful or young or stuck. And I think it really is just like letting Sarah be her own person and not letting myself think that is an extension of me. And the same for Sarah, like not letting her see herself as an extension of me and treating me that way. Like if I act like a dick or say something ridiculous, she should just let me be that person. Like, you know, not think that it's going to influence how people treat her, even though it will. But, you know, that's the hard part, is that it will. If I say something dumb, Sarah suffers, but she has to let me say something dumb. Like sometimes I have to put my foot in my mouth, and sometimes she has to wear an outfit that looks bad, and I just have to let her do it, even though people will absolutely tag me in the photo too.
Wow.
Yes, Sarah, do you?
These are strong feelings. I didn't know Tegan was suffering so much by these tagged photos of me. that I was wearing a what bad outfit is another question I'd like to ask.
Let's cue up Getty Images. We got to get to the bottom of it.
Jeez.
But I know that. Oh, sorry. I'll let you go ahead, Sarah. Then I have a follow-up question.
No, follow it up. I love this.
Oh, great. No, I'm glad you guys brought up your memoir in high school, which is an amazing book. If you haven't bought it, buy it now. Support all authors. I think you guys are so candid and you're so open about your relationship and how you saw each other growing up. So for the people who haven't read the book yet, can you sort of talk about how you each saw each other growing up and how you view each other now?
Yeah, so it's interesting because as Tegan was talking about, the way that we've been perceived, I mean, that was really illuminating when we were writing our memoir, because we specifically write about our teenage years. So starting around when we just had turned 15 and then wrapping up at the end of high school, we were 17, turning 18. So those years, obviously difficult for everyone, I think, even the ones who seem like they're not having a difficult time, but really specifically difficult. We grew up in the 1990s. We were both sort of starting to have an awakening of like, oh God, we're gay. We were having that at like very different speeds, and we were not talking about it with each other. So a lot of the book is sort of that kind of tension and conflict and push and pull of like, I was really aware of my desire and my sexuality, and I started having a relationship in secret with my best friend, who's a girl. And Tegan was, in my mind as an adult, especially, I've looked back on those years and assumed Tegan was having very similar feelings and experiences. And so when we were writing the memoir, I would get drafts of Tegan's chapters and I would be like, kind of like, where's the part about how you were like dying inside, like how I was dying inside, and it just wasn't there. And, but I was going to say, actually, I was curious about the way that you and your brother ended up so different, and not to blame parents. It's just, I think a lot of times our parents think they're parenting us the same. And they, their best of intentions. I love both my kids equally, but when we were writing the memoir, I went back through all of my journals, and actually friends of ours sent us notes that they had kept from when we were teenagers. And I actually address the fact that my mom treats Tegan differently than me, that they have a carefree relationship, that they can be affectionate with one another still. And even at 15 years old, I think I sort of took I sort of had the idea that my mom was rejecting something about me, when probably my mom experienced me as rejecting her, like I was pushing her away. And so it did really inform like how I experienced Tegan and my place within the family, because in the notes I write, like, I feel left out. I feel like, I'm not getting the same kind of love and affection and encouragement, that Tegan was what I saw Tegan getting. And I wondered if you and PJ sort of have that too. Like, were your parents more one way with him than they were with you?
Well, first I should say I was a giant bitch when I was a teenager. Like, oh my God, I'm like, if I didn't become a success, like truly they just wasted those eggs and that sperm. Like, what the hell? Like, I put them through a lot. And so I do think that, our parents were very supportive of us, and they really valued education in a way that I just sort of was like, well, I just want to do like the creative stuff. Like, I like writing, I like reading, I like art class. Like, I don't care about science, I don't care about math, I don't care about these things. So I was very much sort of kind of like beat to my own drummer sort of way. You know what I mean? I think my parents always suspected that I was never going to have like a 9-to-5 job and like go to the same bar every week for a happy hour or whatever, you see on like How I Met Your Mother. And remember that show?
That's exactly what I was imagining.
But so I think they always knew that like he was so like he's the kind of person that he would just love to read presidential biographies that were 500 pages and had the teeny tiny font. Like, he was like, oh, that's great. Or like he loved watching C-SPAN. I don't know if that's a channel that you guys get.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But that was like for fun. and I was watching like Moesha, and he was watching local sort of like 3 people in a room talking about libraries, and he loved that. And so I think our parents really sort of nurtured us sort of going down the path that we wanted to go down. But I think hearing you speak, I think it makes me look back at the way that I was with my parents and how I was like kind of shitty to my brother for a little bit. And I think I was sort of rejecting them because I didn't know who I was. And I felt like he had everything figured out. And I was sort of going like, well, what the fuck? Like, I don't know what I want to do when I'm 18. Like, I don't know if I want to go to college, like all these unknowns, you know? And I think that sort of manifested as like aggression as opposed to just being like, guys, I'm really nervous because I don't know what I want to do in a career. Like, I don't know where I want to live. Like, I just sort of turned that like either into creativity or anger, which is, I think, not super healthy. And I've done a much better job of not doing that. But I think our parents really did sort of like support us in the ways that we needed it. And I think I just was mentally and emotionally not in a place because I was like, well, I don't want to go to school. And it's like, well, the solution is like not going, like, it's not just dropping out of school. Like, that's not the plan. But like, I was just like, I don't care about this shit. And so I think my parents were they were kind of hurt because they really wanted us to care about education in a way that would change our lives. And I didn't see that when I was 14. I just felt like they were trying to force me to be like my brother, which I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting too, because a big source of conflict when Tegan and I were growing up was when we started to talk about not going to college. In Canada, we were talking about university, but and it's so interesting because another revelation for me in writing the memoir was that my mom was my hero. I mean, she was a force, and she had gone back to school as an adult and a single parent. She had taken out student loans. She'd gone back and I think we were in grade 3 the first time she went back. And then she went and did her master's when we were in high school. And I thought she was so deeply inspiring. And it makes sense that she was encouraging us from a young age, not just by telling us you have to go to school, you need to get degrees and to have all this success. She was showing us. She was saying, here, look at me, look at what I'm doing and look at what I'm going to accomplish. And, that wasn't a thing in our family. No one had gone to college or university. And so initially we were very like, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And when we said, oh, we actually would like to take a year off or maybe pursue music, that too was a rejection of my mom, and this path that she had set out for us. And as an adult, it was really healing for me to also be able to say to my mom now, like, it wasn't just that we were rejecting school or we didn't want to do it. It looked hard what my mom had gone through. Like, I grew up watching her, not eat dinner and come home she would work too. And then she would pick us up and then she would be like doing her class stuff. And then she'd have to get up early again. It looked really hard. And I think as a teenager, suddenly that dream as a kid of like going to becoming a lawyer, I was like, that looks so hard and I don't really want to do that. And so being able to tell my mom now, like, that wasn't a rejection of like how she had lived her life. It was sort of like, I had so much respect for her and I didn't think I could do it.
Yeah.
And I probably couldn't. At 17, I was very interested in music and taking acid. I did not want to go and, study harder and go to school more, So, yeah. But it's so interesting, that idea of like, as your siblings, are making choices, it's like you are sort of not pitted against each other, but it does feel like by one person following that path can be like just a tremendous pressure on the other person. Even Tegan pretending to be straight. I'm not even joking. Like, Tegan continued to have boyfriends after I wasn't. Weren't you?
It's not pretending when you're figuring out your identity. You can tell me that, but I'm just cautioning you against using that terminology when speaking about finding yourself.
Oh,
you're gonna be canceled.
Yeah.
The gay community is gonna cancel you.
Okay,
Sarah Quinn, half of lesbian duo Tegan and Sara, accuses people finding their identity of pretending. Yeah, okay. I think that, this is what I think is so super interesting is that I always really resonate with like movies or books or stories or friends' tales about growing up with their siblings, but there is something super, super specific to being an identical twin, because a lot of my friends who have close, like you and PJ, you said are 4 years apart. Like a lot of our friends who are like 2 to 4 or 5 years apart, like there was a lot of conflict growing up because you're really compared. Your parents are like, wait, he just did it like this. Why can't you be like that? And I think with twins, it's just even more intense. You know, everything that we went through at the same time. And I think our parents did a pretty excellent job of treating us as individuals, but ultimately you do get treated the same. And there's this natural sibling rivalry and competition that comes out of that, because you do feel like my biggest fear in coming out wasn't about how the world would respond or my parents would respond. It was that Sara would be angry that I was copying her. Like that was truly what prevented me from coming out initially. It was just a deep-seated fear that she would feel that I was on her ground, that I'd taken her space, you know? And I think even as an adult, like even now, we joke about it all the time, but like the books we read or the television we get into or the music, like I often feel that there is a like subtle telepathic message from Sara, like don't like all the same things as me, you know, like don't be exactly like me, like don't, you know, if something looks great on Sara, or if Sara tells me that a book that she like, I'll read it, I'll check it out, I'll be into it, but there is this weird subtle psychological warfare, and I really get it. But to be our own people, even in adulthood, you know, and I guess that's a product, I think, probably of still being so invested in each other's lives, you know, because of our job. But that's still hard. Like, it's still hard sometimes that like Sara's the reader, but I'm the reader too. But it's like Sara's, you know, and it seems so small when you just hold it up as its own individual problem or issue. But when you start to collect all those little issues, it's like I can see why Sara and I still struggle sometimes with, you know, being our own people. Like I always say that Sara and I are referred to as the girls, the twins, the band, them, the two of them. You know, like the shareholders, our team calls us the shareholders, you know, or the talent, you know, and we just sometimes the desire to like unscrub Sara from my identity is so strong. Like, and
she means kill me off. She means that's like mafia language. She wants to scrub me from her
or like
identity. Like that's a threat, and it's been recorded. So if something happens to me, this might be evidence.
I say this all the time too. Like I always embraced our identity. I think there's always one twin that really wants to be the twin, and I was always the twin that really loved our identity and wanted to use it to get us ahead. But in the last like 5 years, I'd say, and I think this corresponded with we lived in different cities for 12 years, and then Sara moved to LA, and a lot of the friends that I had there that I had developed friendships with for 10 years just immediately adopted Sara. And partly because they had a relationship with Sara, very different than mine. Yeah. But they just adopted her immediately. And all of a sudden, my friends and my social circle included Sara. And of course, I wanted that. I love Sara, and I think she's really fun and amazing. And like, I don't have the right to tell people they could be friends with her or not. But there was a morning that happened for me where it was like, oh, like a lot of these people that maybe I thought of as my confidants aren't. And it's not a normal sibling relationship. Like I have to talk about Sara a lot because I deal with her on so many different areas of my life and so many layers. And so carving out space for myself has become super important. But it's really hard to do that when you're an identical twin, and everybody – even people who have never had, like I have friends who only have a relationship with me, but they have affection for Sara. They have affection for her. They talk about her and appreciate us because
I'm very likable.
See her.
You acting like you're
no,
shocked.
but you know, but they're
She's like, they don't even know her, but they have affection for her.
No, but of course they do. But I mean, like that spills over into this weird territory where it's like I'm like really respectful, like that. You know, Sara.
Maybe you just like to
her own identity.
Maybe the people you're friends with are too generous and too nice. Like I had friends when I lived in Montreal all those years. I had friends who kept forgetting that you even existed. Like I just like assholes. I like assholes. I like people who are just.
I do have really nice friends. I don't know what to say, but I want to say like But I think some of this again is psychological and is an issue around twins and less about the people. Like I have this joke. It's not even a joke, but I have this story I always tell about how people will come backstage. It would just be me. I'll just be in the room alone. I'll open the door. You know, the tour manager brings, oh, your guest has arrived. And I'll open the door and I'll be like, hi. And they'll be like, how are you guys? But it's just me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, And I understand what they're saying. It's a catch-all for how's the tour? What have you guys been up to? You know, all this stuff. But there is also part of me that's like, why can't you see it's just me? Why am I not enough?
Well, that makes me want to ask you guys sort of about, I have a couple follow-up questions because you guys dropped so many nuggets that I'm scrambling to pick up. But the first being, no, it's great. I please talk away because this is very fascinating. People are going to love this. But one of the things I'm curious about, because you guys are twins and you sort of had to figure out what your identity was going to be independent of each other, yet still work together. I'm wondering what that process was like, if it's still ongoing. And then also in terms of your sexuality, and Tegan, how you were saying like, well, I was scared to come out because Sarah came out first and I don't want her to think she's copying me. How did you guys sort of have a conversation and kind of like reconcile maybe that fear that you had and just be like, no, this is who I am too. And I swear I'm not trying to, bite off your style. Like I truly just like, this is also my.
Could I do that right now? Could I tell Sarah that now? It's been 20 years, but.
I don't think we did ever have that conversation. I mean, I think that some of this stuff is really easy to sort of, to see now. I don't know if we really noticed this. I think that there were just sort of fractures. There was damage. There was things that needed to sort of over time. I don't know, like we sort of recovered our relationship, like it was sort of like little pieces of it. We would sort of like build it back up over time. And I think that, even now, like listening to Tegan talk about the struggles of like feeling like she wants to have her own things, her own people. Like I think these are really like normal, like behaviors. And I know that for myself, I think I arrived, while I am the younger twin, I do think I sort of arrived at some of this stuff earlier than Tegan. Like I moved to Montreal when I was 22, which, for just not trying to condescend, like the geography for people who aren't aware, like the difference between Vancouver and Montreal is pretty much akin to like LA and New York. Like that was far. And for 2002, like I didn't have high speed internet. I don't even know if I had a cell phone. Like it was like I was moving to Antarctica, and Tegan was devastated. I mean, she was like, to me, it revealed itself more as anger. Like it was like, how are we going to have a band? How are we going to have a career? Like, why are you moving? You don't even know anyone there. Like there was a lot of that sort of, and then I don't think I said to her in a calm, rational way, like, this is important for my self-identity and I really need to like strike out on my own and see if I can be me. And, can I move to a city where I don't know anyone? And, what am I without you? And like, like that sort of thing. I think I just was like, fuck off. I'm going to do what I want to do. And like, don't be a bitch about it. But I think like that ultimately was what I was doing. I was 22 and I wanted to go have my going to college experience, I guess. Like I wanted to like get out of Tegan's shadow in some way. And, I think our relationship would have been easier if we had been able to say those things to each other. Like, while I think we were really good, emotional, communicative people in certain areas of our lives, with each other, there was this sort of arrested development for a long time. And it probably would have made things a lot easier if I'd been able to say that. But I think over the years, we've recovered some of that relationship stuff where it's like, okay, I actually feel close to you again. I want to be in the same city as you. Or even with our music, there's times where we're in the same band, but man, it feels like we're in totally different spaces. And then there's times like right now where we're collaborating daily on projects, and it's like there's a real connectedness. And so I don't know, it just like it sort of ebbs and flows. Like I guess we're almost like a married couple. Like, when you talk to those old married couples and they're like, oh yeah, we ignored each other for our 40s and 50s, and then it's like it was back to fuck mountain for our 60s, and then it's just like,
why are you using this as a comparison to us? Why?
I'm just saying, like, couples, they go through these like ebbs and flows of connectivity, and like I think Tegan and I are similar. Like sometimes we're like really excited to be working on stuff with each other, and then there's times where it's like I need my own space. Like I want to see other projects, like I just want to do other things.
Okay, fuck
Tegan
mountain.
Tegan hates Tegan hates it when I use, because there's this whole like twin girl gay thing where like everyone assumes that we are incestuous.
It's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. It's because
That's
there's
the whole
like
thing.
this.
Wild.
It's a straight fetish thing, right? Because they always want like two girls for a guy, and so sisters is like
Yeah.
even more. It's gross. You know what? Sarah uses this like
Tegan Quinn
marriage.
shames incestuous twins. Like, I mean, you can't.
Well-
Be very careful, Tegan.
I don't know if I do. I don't know if I could get. I don't know if I could get in trouble for that.
You might get in trouble with twins who like to have sex with other people together. Like, let's just not be
That's
like judgmental.
Okay, fine, but that would be fine with me. I was gonna say, Sarah and I went out and did like, I don't know, we did maybe a dozen meetings when we were getting ready to sell our book. I'm blanking on the word.
Wow.
What is it called? Proposal. Sorry, guys. Sorry, it's hot in here. I have to close all the windows. It's getting hot. I'm in a sauna right now, so I'm just gonna start to trip out. But
You're gonna be Trump yesterday in the Rose Garden.
totally. I'm going to fall apart. My makeup's going to melt. So we took a dozen meetings when we were selling our book proposal, I would say. And in almost every single one, Sarah would bring up this whole theory or this idea, like, I don't even know what you would call it, that she had this idea, which is that I don't want to have kids. And my partner and I, we've been together 5 years. We're pretty sure we're not going to have kids. There's still a window. She's younger than me, but we were pretty much like, eh. But Sarah and her partner talk about kids a lot. And Sarah started telling these like complete strangers in the publishing world at almost every meeting that Sarah had this great idea, which is that we both don't need to have kids. Sarah is going to have a kid and it'll be the heir to our empire, everything will go to, and there'll be like a co-parenting kind of whatever. And it was like, people would kind of get into like, would listen and whatever. But I was like, hey, I think this is a little weird to talk about with people. Like, I think maybe
only if you use the patriarchal heteronormative framework. I mean, what is a child? I'm not saying we have to make a child in a sexual concourse. I'm saying that if you could just make a child and then assign it like it's like a business, like you have been like, this is what the royal family
This
is.
This is literally what happened in the
Assign it
meeting.
like a business, Sarah. I gotta pause.
Little Billy is gonna he knows like you have been born into this family to carry on the Tegan and Sara legacy. What is the royal family? I mean, that is what it is. They basically have children so that they can keep their castles and their capes. I mean, that's what it is. So for me, I was like, I would have the child. Obviously, it would be my kid, but I'm saying it would sort of be it would be a shared investment opportunity for Tegan and Sara, the brand, so that there would be this kind of caretaker, if you will, this archival, this person who sort of like takes care of our business after we're long gone and dead. I don't know. I think it's a good idea. We'd probably get some write-offs. Like, I think it would be great.
This is the worst Shark Tank pitch I've ever heard in my life.
I don't know. Maybe I'm ahead of my time. I might be ahead of my time.
Could be.
Phoebe, I was
Yes.
wondering, it's not like a sibling, but you kind of came to the public, like you really sort of like became like a public figure as a part of a duo. I mean, what is there stuff in there that you can like you recognize, like, oh yeah, you kind of want to do your own thing, or like, was there stuff like that?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, when Jess and I met in 2014, I've been doing stand-up for about 6.5 years. So I had that time where I was solo and obviously no one gave a shit about what I was doing yet. But I had my identity on stage. And so when we started working together, it didn't feel like, oh, I need to get out of this. Like, I sort of went into it, and I think Jessica did as well. It's like, oh, this is a fun, like we didn't go into Two Dope Queens thinking it was going to become what it did. So we didn't think about HBO. We didn't really think about a podcast. We just wanted to do like a fun show in Brooklyn that we could walk to, hang out with our friends, and then go home. And so I think because it just sort of turned from this fun thing into a business venture, that I think made it different than if I was like, hey, let's work together. I think we're going to be in HBO. And she was just sort of like, well, I have a daily show. Like, I'm really not. Like, I think that would have made things trickier. But I feel like I had a good sense of who I was as a performer. And, I'm older than her. I think when Two Dope Queens really broke out, I was 32. So I think it's a different sort of, just like in your 30s, you kind of know yourself more. And so I think it's easier to not get caught up in the duo of it all. And then also, I was able to more easily accept, okay, people are going to look at us as a duo. Whereas I think if it was something that we started when I was 25, I think I would have been like, quit quit looking at us as a duo. Like, I'm my own person. Like, I did stand up for 6 years before I met her. Like, in my 30s, like, I didn't feel the need to say that because I'm like, well, of course, this is how people discovered me. So, yeah, they're going to relate me back to Jessica and accept that because it really opened up my life in this wonderful, like, amazing way. So I think I was able to sort of get through it and not feel this level of resentment. I mean, she was the famous one, and I was just like this little scrappy Brooklyn comic. So for me, it was so low stakes. I was like, nobody knew who I was before. Now some people do. I guess that's cool, but I'm still not famous in the way that she is. So I think for me, it's been easier to sort of navigate that because it's sort of, I could still just go about and do stand up. I can write or I can produce or podcast. And it's just really kind of business as usual because I always like to have 20 jobs that I'm doing at once. So Tito Queens just felt like another job that I had. Yeah.
Cool.
But yeah, what about you two in terms of working together? Like, I mean, you guys have been in band for a really long time, and just in general, for bands to make it this long is so rare. And then to have the family element on top of that, I mean, what has sort of been the process of keeping the work alive, but also making sure that your relationship doesn't become just this business transaction, but you still have that love and that family element there too?
I think that's gotten easier as time has gone on, for sure. And I'd say in the last, 4 or 5 years, we've settled into a bigger, more rich family life and friend life. And just like, we're in a different position in our career where we don't have to work as much. Like, in the earlier part of our career, you take any tour that people gave you and we were working constantly. And the quality of life on those tours was so low that when we got off the road, the last thing I wanted to do was hang out with Sarah. And I think our lives have become so rich in so many different ways that
financially, I'm just kidding.
Like financially is a big part of it. Yeah. And now we can like go on a vacation to Greece with our parents.
Once we became rich, we totally got along with each other.
Now we're happy. It's crazy. It's just, there's money. It's
Turns out money can buy happiness.
Yeah. No, like some of it is, we get to go on a vacation together and it's really fun and it's not attached to work. It's not like, oh, we're finishing the tour in Des Moines, so let's add a couple days there and hang out as a family. Like we're able to enjoy our time outside of work together in a really different way, and that really helps. But I also think that, like I said, the quality of life that we experience now, even when we're on tour, is not so hard. I mean, touring was tough. The first 10 years of our career were awful. When I hear young bands 2 years into their career, or even 5 years into their career complaining, I'm like, fuck you. Go on YouTube. Literally the first 10 years of our career, we were in a van, if we were lucky. Sometimes it was the Greyhound bus. And it was hard. Man, it was hard. It's hard being a woman in indie rock. It was hard being gay. There was like a tough time. So I think that we weren't necessarily always jumping into creative ventures full speed ahead, excited, like, all right, time to do a new record. Our life was tough. There were so many hurdles. It was really awful. And then we get off the road and the one inspiration we had was our creative inspiration, and we would pour that into music. But we do that so separate from one another that it's really just been, I'd say, in the last, 5 or 6 years that we've started to collaborate willingly, openly, and really collaborate, starting with our memoir. But now we're working on these graphic novels, and there's just other projects that we work on now, and it feels exciting. And there are ways, like our business had been really, like I was always in charge of doing business shit. The accountants, the lawyers, the paperwork, having the tough conversations with the label, that really fell on me, which I come to naturally, so it's fine. But Sarah was initially, like, she was with our creative director who's been with us now like 17 years. Like she was with her for 6 years. So they really held up the creative fun part of our career for a lot of time too. And I think we've also taken down those walls. We're not as siloed. Sarah and I really also are each other's teammate in other parts of our career. Like we can go on vacations now and say, I'm gone for the next week. Sarah's in charge. Just go to her and don't even email me. Don't tell me what happened while it's happening. Just tell me later if anything big happened. And I think that's really helped us to become more successful in life personally, but also as a band, I think, because we're sort of, I know what my strengths are, or I'm better at understanding what they are. And I really know what Sarah's are. And I lean on her now to help me. Whereas I think in my 20s, like similar to what you were talking about, like we struggled through finding ourselves as a duo. So we didn't become our own people until now. And so I think there's less conflict, but we're still figuring it out. I mean, Sarah doesn't give a lot like feedback in the way that I like or want sometimes. And I'm sure I don't give it to her.
This has been a fun conversation, Phoebe.
Oh, this is what we're talking about.
Inviting us to do this so that Tegan could use you as a conduit. You know what?
No, we talk about this all the time. We don't even pay that mind. We talk about this on the internet, on our Instagram live, on Where Does the Good Grow every week. But like, we really need different things, and I think we're finally in a place where we're healthy enough that we're able to express that. You know, we're able to say what we need. You know, we're able to start telling each other like, hey, could you give me more feedback? Or could you give me this kind of feedback? We're finally able to do that. We've never had those conversations, never in our career until now.
That's amazing.
I was going to say too that also, I mean, and this might be a little bit of showing my hand of how I see the world, and Tegan, you know, all of that really, everything she says really makes sense. Like, I would have just told you, like, there was something so traumatic about the beginning of our career. And then when we started to see success, it was sort of, like, I mean, I feel like you might relate to this. Like when things happen in your world that are just like, they become very difficult to talk about with other people who haven't had the exact same experience. You can feel so isolated, and you can I mean, I can communicate with lots of different types of people, but Tegan really gets it because Tegan was there. Like, I can explain like how wild it was to be on the Oscars and to say like, we were standing behind the curtain with all these Broadway people dressed as Lego characters, and like Will Arnett was there dressed as fucking Batman, and like people are like, wow, that sounds like amazing. But like Tegan was there. Like Tegan was witness to
I kind of left my body. I actually really don't remember much about the performance, but sure. Yeah.
But like there's something so profound about going through life with this witness, this person who, like, I saw this, but so did Tegan. Like I can tell I'm using this story as an example because it's like the biggest, brightest story I can like use, but like, it's just like Tegan was on that stage. We both saw Oprah watching us. Like we were watched by Oprah, you know, like, or like I saw Jennifer Aniston like 65 times during that performance. Of all the faces I could have grazed and stayed on, like I just kept seeing Jennifer Aniston. I don't know why, you know, and it was just, Tegan knows because she was there too. And I think like those kinds of moments didn't happen. Like, well, we have lots of traumatizing moments that happened, but like once the good stuff really started to happen to us in our career, it made me feel closer to Tegan because it was like, finally we were like enjoying things that didn't make me feel sad or traumatized. And then that made me feel better about my job. It made me feel better about my sacrifice that I had made, you know, and then it ultimately just made me feel better about Tegan because, you know, shit didn't suck anymore.
You were able to celebrate your hard work together instead of just sort of slogging through like another day where you're like, is it going to be shitty again? I guess. Great. You know, like, so I get that. Before we go to audience questions, which is my favorite part of the show, I want to ask one last question of you guys. And now everything that you've been through as siblings and as, you know, co-workers, band members, co-writers, all those things, how do you see each other now? And what do you think is the other person's best quality that has helped, that makes you go, I admire that in you?
I mean, we make jokes about it. Tegan's right. I mean, it's like maybe a little bit overemphasized, but like, I admire that Tegan truly has had a vision for the business. Like that she, you know, that not only that she did it because I didn't want to do it, but that it was so obviously a strength for her. Like even at like 20 years old, she would walk into a boardroom with all these people from the record label, and she would just like interrupt and talk over the like president of the label, like, you know, and I would just be like, oh God, like we're gonna get in trouble. And Tegan would be like, I'm just gonna let me just jump in and like just tell you about us, you know? And like, I wouldn't have done that, you know. I mean,
they're there to learn about us. I mean, I don't really need to know about some band they worked with in the 80s.
Yeah, but so like Tegan would just like, she would hold court, you know. And I think when I was younger, I felt relief that she would do that, but I don't know if I really understood how truly unique that was. And then that I was able to be a bit more, I think that I'm so much more grateful now for the space to be creative, because I think that's actually where I really thrive, is to be in that sort of more like introspective, alone, working, writing, that kind of place. And it has been a tremendous relief to know that Tegan is often sort of like zoomed out and like looking at our business. And she also makes friends with other bands and actors and people. Like, she's very social. It's a strength that I have like people in my phone who like I met a writer last year, and I just look at his name in my phone sometimes and I'm like, I really want to message him. And then I don't. And I don't know why. I'm shy. I don't feel worthy of messaging this writer. But Tegan would already be like, that guy's coming to our 40th birthday. Like, she would have just already she would have like cemented that, you know? And that's a strength. And I really see that as a strength now.
Nice.
Phoebe knows this because I sent her a questionnaire yesterday about the business. I do. I rely deeply on the community of artists and creatives in my life that I care for very much. But I think my impression of Sara, like just thinking about her adult life, but even when we were kids to some degree, is that I always thought she was an introvert, and in adult life I also found her to be a little snobby, and this was sort of like I think partly because she was like, I like certain books, and I remember like Sara started drinking scotch at like 25, you know what I mean? Like, she just really had like, she's snobby. Like, she moved to New York in her late 20s, or when, I don't know when you moved to New York, like 27, 28 years old, and she was, she wasn't hanging out with musicians in the Village or something, she was hanging out on the Upper West Side and the Upper East Side with weird savants who, I would be around them, and they were all really lovely. I mean this in the most caring way, but like for me, it was insufferable at times, because I was, like, I wanted to go, I don't know, I was still like going to punk shows, and I don't know, we were just so different. And so my perception of Sara through most of my adult life has been that she's an introvert, and she's kind of snobby, and she often surrounds herself with people who, I'm sure once you dig into them, they're wonderful, but on the outside would sometimes be very unfriendly and insufferable. And now I've come to understand and grow to see Sara so differently. I think of her as a researcher. I think Sara, kind of drops into different worlds and is open to exploring them, and also finds the difficult people and opens them up to understand, and comes back like to the main camp where I am like holding court, like the circus of my life, and brings these really interesting finds that we would have never, ever come across, because I'm just tend to be more mainstream and in that lane. And I've come to appreciate that even when it's prickly or off-putting initially, that what Sara's delivering to the camp is potentially something that will really enrich not just our friendships and our family group, but our life, our music, our art. I've always said that I think Sara is a better writer than me. I think I can write sometimes memorable things or really easily digestible songs, but I think if you dive into Sara's writing, her actual lyrics and what she's able to conjure, I can't do that. I try. I sing her songs and try to just rip off her lyrics for my own songs, and I even then don't. It's just Sara connects to the difficult parts of life and culture that I can't. And I really think it's a bonus to my life, but also just like a crazy bonus to our work.
Oh my gosh, those were like such wonderful compliments. And I was like, I don't think I've ever given my brother such a thoughtful, amazing, multi-layered compliment. So I'm going to do that after this podcast. Okay. So this is the time. Look at this.
I
so
love
cute.
that.
Me and one of my wigs. So we got a lot of questions here. I'll try and like sift through a couple. This first one is from Anonymous, and it's kind of juicy. So
God.
Fingers crossed. Okay. Anonymous writes, my sister just got engaged to a total asshole. Yikes. Their relationship and power dynamics are super hard to watch, see, controlling, misogyny, etc. And worst of all, he's racist. Oh, fucking hell.
Oh,
he's white and
dump
states
him.
that that's what I think too. I'm like, just tell your sister to dump him. Okay. So Anonymous continues, he's white and states that he doesn't believe racism exists in everyday America and that the news sensationalizes stories. Cherry on top, he stated he's concerned about racism against white people with what he's seeing online now. This dude is about to become a part of my family. So number one, help. And number two, I see a lose-lose situation if I tell my sis he's trash. How do I show up at their wedding expecting I'll need to make a speech and, you know, have him be a part of my family now?
Ugh.
That's a
Tough.
rough one.
That's
That's
really
tough.
hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard. I mean, I thought this was going to be a question like, have you guys disliked each other's partners in the past? And I definitely have never disliked someone so deserving of dislike, you know, like I've certainly had you know, I've had girls that Tegan has dated that I've really loved and liked, and there's been other people who I was secretly like, I hope this doesn't work out. But
And
not
they
because
knew that. They knew that because that
yeah.
wasn't.
Well, they were also hoping I wouldn't work out. You know, like they would be like, is there a chance that Tegan will choose me over Sara? And it was sort of like, I just, you know, those were humorous situations. But again, like this was more like personality conflict stuff. Like it wasn't necessarily that I was like biting my nails thinking, oh God, is Tegan in danger? Or is she being spoken down to? Or is like her safety in question? Or is this person like a garbage person who's racist and whatever? I don't think I would tolerate that. And actually,
Yeah.
I think that you know, I don't know this person's situation enough to like advise that they do this, but I know that for myself, if Tegan was dating somebody who was hateful or did not share a similar sort of like moral compass, like I would just be like, absolutely not, like total, like these are my boundaries. This person can't exist in this world with me anyway. Not like dead, like don't kill them, but like, you know, like they can't exist in my like emotional space.
Yeah.
I think I would say that. And this person sounds terrible and toxic, but yeah, it's so hard to say like, what if saying something did potentially wreck the relationship between this person and their sibling? That would be horrible. That would be horrible too.
Yeah.
You know, ugh, what a shitty situation.
Is there something to like, I've never done a family intervention, but I wonder if Anonymous was able to get everyone in the family in a room and just be like, listen, you know, this guy just says these really racially insensitive things and is combative, and we want to be happy for you and you're getting married and we want to support you through all these things, but it makes it really difficult when he says racist remarks, and see what she says about that, because it's like of course you don't want to piss your sibling off and them not talk to you, but at the same time to be silently complicit, I think is also just as bad, because it's saying, oh yeah, this toxic behavior is okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
I actually think that's a really good, I think that's very reasonable, but also I think like, first of all, we all know this too from looking at other generations who've just stayed together with toxic people. These things don't get better over time, right? As people get older, they get more stuck and stubborn and awful if they're awful. So I think the time is now before a wedding to have that conversation. And I think doing it in a compassionate way, because some people can't unravel the love they feel for someone from some of their faults. And, you know, racism seems like a pretty decent line to say like, nope, that's where I draw the line. But I think how you just phrased that, like to sit down and say, these are some things that are coming up, and it just, I need to say it now and then we can move forward. But if I don't say it and it gets worse, I'll feel as if I didn't step in. Like this comes from a place of love and trying to like make sure you have the best life you possibly can. So, but
yeah. And I think I also wouldn't give a speech at the wedding. I'd be like, I can't.
Yeah.
Like, what are you going to say? Like,
maybe she could develop laryngitis.
Or a case of serious stage fright.
Yeah.
Also, who's having a wedding now with like the pandemic? I mean,
I know.
She's got at least
Anonymous. We should probably stop gendering the person. I mean, they're anonymous.
Oh gosh.
Could we stop gendering? You're canceled.
Okay. Oh my God, Tegan. This is so stressful. You're
Sarah,
so stressful.
you've been canceled several times during this podcast.
God. So stressful.
Okay, let's move to a slightly a lighter question. Oh, this is cute. Or maybe like not super cute, but you know what I mean. Okay, this is from Jenna, who lives in Pittsburgh, PA. My sister, who's 2 years older than me. Okay, her and I moved to a new city 6 years ago and lived together until I moved in with my boyfriend a few months ago. Congratulations. Her and I are best friends, and while we still spend time together, things have changed, and I don't want her to feel lonely or left behind. How do I maintain a close relationship with her and support her while also establishing my own independence? Much love.
Yeah, so this is like, this is right on the nose for us. We definitely have to navigate all of that all the time. Having those boundaries of like, wanting to center and make your family important is huge, but also having, privacy and autonomy in your own relationship is so key as well. It's actually interesting because when I started dating my partner, she's a twin. She has a twin brother. And we had just started dating, and Tegan and I this doesn't happen that often, but we'll have a fight sometimes where it will stretch on. Like most of the time we can resolve conflict pretty quickly, maybe too quickly. Like not setting the bone that broke properly kind of quickly, but but we have had fights where things will stretch on for weeks even, where we're just not really talking. And I was in one of those, and I remember my partner's name is Stacy, and I remember Stacy being nosy about it, kind of being so what's going on with your sister? And would keep asking me questions, and I would be like, I don't know, who cares? She's a bitch, whatever. And I remember her being family is extremely important to me, and you need to make things right with your sister. And she was so aggressive about getting to know my mother and wanting to be a part of my family and wanting me to be a part of her family. It wasn't just wanting, it was expectations. Very early on, her setting expectations with me about that I want you to know my family. I want you to know my brother. I want you to be a part of the things that are important to me. And even if it meant we were in a fantasy from an American movie, she brought me home so I could see her her college bedroom and her cheerleading trophies and shit. I was this is wild, but she really wanted me to know her, you know?
So what I'm hearing you say in response to this question is
integrate.
What I actually was going to say was you're saying talk about that in your new relationship. Have that conversation early on. I really love my sibling. I really think family's important. But I would say from my own experience with my partner, Sophia, and our terrible therapist experience 2 years ago with this woman, what also is set boundaries. She described it as your relationships are about, you bought a plot of land and you're building your new life on it, and you've moved off the plot of land with your family, or whoever you had in your circle. And you can be neighbors and you can have a really amazing cordial relationship, but this is your property. And I think having boundaries is good, but I think, just set expectations. I think it's really, family is awesome and siblings relationships are important. And I think the longer you're with somebody, you realize too, that you want them to have a good relationship with their family, because then they can lean on them at times down the road. So, just sell it. You just got to sell that. The property thing's weird because I know that sounds—
I was going to say, Tegan, for not liking this therapist, you use her advice all the time. It's just you're she was garbage. But anyways, what she taught me about life, and I fully integrated this into my way of thinking.
Well, as you know, I can't
imagine yourself as a settler and you buy a piece of land. You have an apple tree, and your family has an orange tree. And so one has to learn how to share because you don't want to eat apples for the rest of your life. Just a thing that my shitty therapist once told me.
There you go.
I will also say I think one thing that Jenna can keep in mind is, while you're in this new relationship and you're having this amazing time with your boyfriend, you're living together, I think sometimes, and I remember because my brother married his college sweetheart, so he's been with her since he was 18. And I met my partner, British Bake Off, when I was 32. And so I was single for a long time. And I think people just automatically assume that if you were single, you're lonely or you're sad or you feel like you're missing out because your sibling is married. And I really didn't feel that in my 20s. So maybe you could just also sort of kind of check in with her and be like, how can I support you? What's going on in your life? And not sort of
project.
frame it. Yeah. And not frame it as she is now losing something, rather than maybe this is her chance she might feel to find her own autonomy. So
yeah,
just, my own 2 cents.
You really could be a therapist. You really have a nice—
Oh, really?
You really have you have a really nice zoomed out perspective on things. You just have I think that's I don't think I would have even picked up on that whole the sort of idea of the sibling being sad because they're single. Like I just would have. I think that's just really insightful.
Oh, thank you so much. See, British
Yeah.
Bake Off. I'm very insightful, babe. Okay. Ooh, this is really, really good. Okay. So this is from Layla, South Carolina. This will be the last one.
Okay.
I often find myself comparing myself to my older brother. We're really close, but I still feel like I'm in his shadow sometimes. It can be especially tough because we have similar interests and are on the same career path. I was wondering how you all manage forming your own identities in your personal and professional lives while still seeking your siblings for support in your life and maintaining a close friendship. Whew. Yeah.
There's a lot there.
So much there.
There's so much there, and it's very similar, I think, to what we were
Yeah.
just talking about, certainly in our situation. And I think, you know, it's a lot of trial and error, but
Mhm.
I think it's really, for me, having the same interests and following the same career path can be real bonuses in a sibling relationship because you have this built-in support. You have another person right there in your family to so I think it's framing it as a positive. You know, I think our missteps, we're seeing it as, oh no, she's going to think I'm copying her. Or, oh, we have to be different. I think a lot of our resistance and fear and lack of communication at the beginning of our working relationship stunted us. And I think that I would sort of say, like, just air all of that. Say like, we have so many of the same interests and we're going down the same path. And I want our relationship not to suffer. I want it to be, I want this to be a positive. Like, because I think if we'd had a conversation like that, it would have made it easier. You know, if we'd really heard each other, seen each other, and shared the wealth at the beginning of our career, it might have saved us a lot of conflict.
I also think too, like, you know, it's easy to sort of see yourself as having a lot of commonality, like whether it's like about a career or your interests and likes. But, you know, I don't think Tegan and I are so different. But if you really start to sort of talk to us about what we're like, these shared interests, the truth is that we're interested in very different ways. We have different curiosities. We have different perspectives on those things. And, you know, while we both, for example, were really interested in, you know, whatever, like when we were in our 20s, we were interested in indie rock. Well, there's lots of different kinds of indie rock. And so, you know, I feel like we ended up not feeling as competitive as one would imagine, just because I think that it was sort of like I had my own lane and Tegan had hers. And so it was like, it wasn't like we were like, oh no, shucks, we both wrote the same type of song, or we're both suddenly interested in the same type of, you know, content or whatever. It was often like we were really approaching from really unique perspectives and different places. So I wonder too, if these siblings, as close as they might seem or as interested as they are in the same things, like I bet they both bring really different perspectives to those interests.
Yeah. And I would also say, you know, growing up, especially like in my 20s, I would always complain to my parents like, oh, I'm in PJ's shadow. And then he would complain to my parents and be like, no, Phoebe's a real star. And like, I didn't know this, like this was going on for like years. And then my dad told me, I'm like, we're both thinking the same thing about the other person. And like, if we had just sort of said it to each other like once, we could have resolved it instead of having this like these tiny little resentments that like, oh, everyone thinks he's like really cool and like no one gives a shit about me. And it was just sort of like our own sort of neuroses kind of creating this conflict when it was like, no, people like both of us for independent reasons and we're doing different things. And I think it's hard because you are so worried with your sibling, especially like this is the person you grow up with. So you're assuming that everyone's comparing you. And then you have to get to a place where like, even if people are, that can't override. Oops, sorry, I hit the microphone. That can't override how you guys. Like that can't override like how you view each other and, you know, how you view yourself. So I think just having this conversation with your brother, he might be like, what are you talking about? You're so not in my shadow. And he could, what is it? Like you exercise the ghost? Is that what it is?
Exercise the ghost.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I almost said exercise the ghost. And I'm like, no, I don't want to work out with the ghost. Get on that Peloton. I don't want to do that. Well, this has been honestly so fun. I've loved this. You guys give such sage advice. I adore you both so much. And I'm so grateful that you could sort of share your journey and be so honest and open, because I think so many people who have siblings, they might spend so much of their lives not saying something or biting their tongue or not like giving praise when they could. And so I think that this will help people open up a dialogue more with like their siblings and have a closer relationship, or also not, or also tell your sister that your husband is a racist piece of bullshit and you need to drop him. Which I'm also like, think about this. If you marry this racist guy and you have kids with him, you're going to be raising racist babies.
Yeah.
Like, you have to think this through. Like, don't get married unless you really understand this is for the rest of your life.
Like
anyway.
my partner Sophia, within the few weeks of us dating, told me that she does not like how I pull food off my fork with my teeth because it makes a certain noise and it drives her crazy. And she was just like, I can't commit to a lifetime of listening to that noise. And I was like, totally fine with that. I changed the way I ate. You know, if she'd expressed even mild tones of racism at the beginning of the relationship, I would have been like, bye. I wouldn't have married her. That's for sure.
I see what you're doing there. I mean, Sophia couldn't accept your teeth hitting the fork. She's definitely not going to accept you being racist. I mean,
heck no.
Yeah, it's true. You have to be. It's not just.
She almost broke up with me when I asked if her parents had Wi-Fi in Brazil. She was like, did you get an education? What are you imagining?
Do you know, those small things are the things, like Stacey didn't have a duvet when we started dating. She just had like a blanket, like a quilt. And I was like, why don't you have a duvet? That doesn't even make any sense. And she was like, my mom used to make my brother and I get inside and pull the corner, like get inside of the duvet cover and pull the blanket into the corners. And she said she just felt trapped and traumatized as a little kid inside of the duvet. So we did some therapy around that. Like so now whenever we put the duvet on, I'm always like, why don't you get inside, Stacey, and pull the blanket in. But I was like, I cannot share a bed with someone who is using a weird blanket quilt. Like, you need to have a duvet. So is that going to get me canceled? So I probably just dissed.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
like the quilt industry is going to go crashing today. Just like Sarah from Tegan Sara says, quilts are gross.
Hashtag duvets are for privileged people.
Yeah. Okay, great. Yeah.
Well,
like I'm being a Karen. Like I'm just disgusted. Like I'm just like, I'm going to end this relationship if you don't get a duvet.
We're devolving. This is what we do. We fall apart here at the end. Cut off our mics.
No, everyone go get the book High School. Is there anything else you two want to plug?
Oh, that's great. Cool. Well, that's awesome. Our paperback is coming out, I believe it's at the end of September, beginning of October. So yeah, go listen or buy our memoir, High School.
Okay, babe, was that not so cute?
That was such a fun episode to like see the dynamics between the two. And honestly, I thought shit was about to pop off at the beginning. I was like, whoa, are we going to get into some like disagreements here? But I think it's a lot of issues they've touched on before, and it's it's a really good insight into a sibling dynamic when two people are working together like that.
Yeah, I thought it was so cute. Hold on.
It's literally my life, everyone.
Well, here's the thing that makes it trifling is that like we'll be in bed. Literally, you are dipping your big toe into your REM, and I crunch the last of my cough sweet.
And I wake up immediately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably like why you don't get a good night's sleep.
Probably.
Oh, no! Okay, so listen, mates. It was a great interview. I love both of them.
Drop the accent.
I can't because this is like how I was born,
Is how
mate.
you speak, is it?
It's how I was born, mate. I was born in bloody Manchester.
All right.
Yeah, I lived there all my life. Immigrated here when I was 28.
We can wait.
Wait for what? This is who I am, mate. But I love them so much. I'm really excited because the paperback edition of their book High School is now available. So
go get it.
Order it wherever you get your books from. High School by Tegan and Sara. I'm really excited. As always, I love you, babes.
Love you too, darling.
Even when you don't accept me for who I am, this is me.
Yeah.
My American accent is what is the fake thing, because I heard that you were into American girls, And so I was like, oh, let me just pretend like I'm from Ohio, like.
So if you haven't already, don't forget to check out to Bolden. Bolden USA. Great skincare line. And speak to you next week. Credit time.
I was in the middle of telling my life story about growing up as a little black girl in Manchester.
Okay.
Manchester United is my favorite football team.
Host.
I love, what's it? East Siders? Is that a show?
EastEnders. Close. Very, very close.
And I love eating fucking fish and chips, fucking puddings, fucking watching Monty Pythons,
okay,
listening to Adele and fucking Stormzy. Host Phoebe Lynn Robinson, producers Phoebe Lynn Robinson, British Bake Off, editor British Bake Off. Theme song Gavin Turek. Until next week. See ya.
No interns this week.
Oh wait, and our interns, Sasha and Malia Obama.